Have you ever thought about all the people history never taught you about? All the people that we never learned about in school. Just because we didn't learn about them in school doesn't mean they're not worth learning about. So this is Sir Archibald McIndoe. I'm willing to bet you more than likely haven't heard of him. Right? But I've done some pretty extensive research regarding Sir Archibald McIndoe and some of his accomplishments. So he left a legacy of altruism behind, helping people everywhere he went. He was an English surgeon, as I'm sure you just saw on the previous slide. So what did he do? Sir Archibald McIndoe pioneered a new treatment for burn victims. He started a program called the Guinea Pig Club, which was comprised of World War II veterans that suffered from pretty severe burns due to burns caused by the jet fuel in the planes. Then he also helped to found the Blond McIndoe Research Foundation as well as AMREF, which we'll be getting into here shortly. So he was instrumental in helping to reintegrate these men from the Guinea Pig Club back into society and continues to have these foundations available to people even though he's no longer with us. So it's my hope that by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of who he is, the things that he did, and as well as maybe a new perspective on the way that you see people who suffer from burns and serious disfigurements. So we should all aspire to be as altruistic as Mr. McIndoe was, and I think the best way to do that is to educate ourselves about him just a little bit. But before we get into too much of what he actually did and his accomplishments, I think it's important to talk a little bit about his education. So, Mr. McIndoe is originally from Europe, England to be specific. He had spent 5 years at the Mayo Clinic in America. He was quick rising. He was well respected by a lot of his peers, even at a very young age, as early as his 20s, which for a doctor is pretty impressive. He had assisted another surgeon at the Mayo Clinic, and they had made some pretty important strides as well. So, it's important to note that Piney and Metcalf are the ones I got this information from. So there was, around the turn of World War II, jets, that they had started fighting with, dog fights. And there was a term called jet burn that essentially was the fuel from the jets as they were shot down would seriously burn the pilots. So they coined this term jet burn. Makes pretty good sense. So according to Garrett Phillips, there was a treatment for the burn. Sorry, Garrett Phillips. Always do that. Treatment for the burn. It was using tannic acid. So they used a product called Tanex, which was a gel. You can see here we've got the hand, blisters, pretty severely burned. The Tanex they would apply would help to remove some of the dead skin and prevent infection. And then at the very end here we have what it looked like after some of that had healed. So this was an extremely painful procedure. I mean, they were using acid to treat burns, which were already pretty painful. And it also left really severe scarring. So, Mr. McIndoe found a new and better way to treat this. He had noticed that as the pilots were shot down into the seawater, they had a tendency to heal better due to the saline in the water, the salt, right? So, he came up with a saline solution that was obviously much less painful than tannic acid, had better recovery rates, and left the victims with less severe burns. So this was that new and revolutionary treatment. It was something as simple as salt water that nobody at the time had really figured out. All right, so according to Piney Metcalf, there was a town called East Grinstein, right, dubbed the town that did not stare. I'm sure you can see this picture of this guy here. He's got an elongated, deformed nose attached to his wrist from the burns. I don't know about you, I see this guy walking down the street. There's a pretty good chance I may have a tendency to stare just a little bit. I mean, it's definitely abnormal. It would catch my attention, right? So I think it's wonderful that they had a place where they could go. And, this town wasn't quite as judgmental as maybe some other areas. So East Grinstein is where the town that didn't stare was, but Grinstein is where Queen Victoria's Hospital was. This is where Sir Archibald was located after he'd returned from America in his efforts to kind of help with World War II and some of these burn victims. So that leads me to the Guinea Pig Club. The Guinea Pig Club was a club comprised of these individuals that suffered from the burns. Now, there was requirement for membership. You had to have had at least 2 surgeries by the boss, which is what they had nicknamed Sir Archibald McIndoe. And you had to have actually been a World War II fighter pilot, right, in the UK at this time. So, as you can see, the guys here are all having fun, jumping around, and then this is Sir Archibald McIndoe over here with the glasses on. But the purpose of this club was to help socially reintegrate and help to support each other, right? These were pretty serious issues that they were struggling with. So the romantic lives of the pilots suffered pretty greatly, according to Gareth Phipps. As you can see, we have divorces, but I'm sorry. As you can see, the nurses and the pilots ended up forming relationships and getting married. Prior to that, there were some divorces between some of the pilots and their wives due to their disfigurements. So, as you can see here, picture of the marriage, having fun at the wedding. The Brotherhood still lives on. Okay, so there are still living members. There are living members, although not too many. They're in the double digits, but they meet annually. The club is no longer taking new members, being that the war has ended. So, this is according to, according to Piney and Metcalf. But according to Tolhurst, death of the boss. So he had died from a heart condition a few weeks after he had had a surgery for a cataract, oddly enough. And then shortly before his death, I believe it was the same day, he had gone up to sleep and died in his sleep. But right before that, he was discussing plans to help set up the Blonde McIndo Research Foundation. So AMREF, the African Medical Research Foundation. What was he doing in Africa? He moved to Africa after the war, and he was farming at that time. Notice some of the people in the surrounding areas didn't quite have the medical treatment that they needed, so he had started this program, which is still alive and well today. Then we also had the Blonde McIndo Research Foundation. So this foundation started up 1 year after he died. He had, like I said, started it with another individual, and this is also still going on today. So in closing, he lived a full life full of groundbreaking revolutionary treatments. He helped many people along the way. We had his education. I mean, we had gone over the new treatment that he had found for burn victims, the guinea pig club that he had created, as well as some of these research foundations. So it's my hope that all of you now have a better understanding of at least one person that seems was forgotten by history, right? As I mentioned earlier, we should all aspire to be as altruistic as Mr. McIndo. And it is my hope that after this, maybe you've altered your perception on the way that you see things and learned at least a little bit more about somebody who seems to me was forgotten by history. Thank you.